We've talked about rhythm, that is to say different note values and how long to hold them. And we've talked about pitch and how to read the notes on a staff. We've talked about intervals and chord theory, that is to say how chords are built and how to put them together to make effective chord progressions. With all of that understood, we can get into some slightly more advanced topics. In this video, I want to discuss articulation. Articulation describes how we sound a particular note, not the pitch, not the duration, and not the volume either. That falls under dynamics, which we'll discuss in the next video. Now, to be fair, you could say that, in a way, articulation is kind of a combination of duration and volume. You know what? Let me show you some examples of articulation and how we notate them. Sometimes it's easier to just show rather than tell. First, let's look at legato and staccato. They are others, but they are less common or otherwise instrument-specific. Staccato is written using dots. Staccato tells us that the notes indicated should be played short and sharp. Legato is basically the opposite of staccato. Notes should be joined and smooth. They should flow into each other. Notice that legato is written on the page using slurs. One way to think of articulations is to think about our speech patterns, the way we as human beings speak. We don't keep the same rhythm all the way through. There are fluctuations. I might decide to speak in a very sharp way such that each word is heard and understood. Or I might decide to speak in a very smooth way so that one word flows into the next. We can apply this logic to the music we play. And one way to do this is to look at the slurs in the music and to think of each group of slurred notes as a separate phrase. So wherever we see a slur, those particular notes should flow into each other. When done well, articulation is barely noticeable when it's present and very noticeable when it's missing. Other forms of articulation are glissandos or slides. Not really possible on a piano or any fretted instrument, but something like a violin will allow you to slide seamlessly between notes. Fermaters tell us to hold a note slightly longer than what's written. On bowed instruments like violin, viola, cello, and double bass, we have what's called a pizzicato. This tells us to play the notes by plucking the strings with a finger instead of bowing, which you would do for both legato and staccato. A lot of what makes a piece of music sound like it's being performed by a human comes down to articulation. I'll leave you with this thought. The fact is, you're never going to play a piece 100% exactly the way it's written. You might be able to play all of the pitches correctly, you might even get the rhythm perfect, but articulation, that's another story. In fact, every time you play that piece, no matter how well practiced you are, it's going to be very slightly different because of articulation. Because of this, every performance is actually unique. This is why we buy tickets to go see a performance. It's not about the music so much as it is about the performance of that music. Okay, I'm going to bring this video to an end before we go too far down the philosophical rabbit hole. I hope you found this helpful. I'll see you in the next one.